Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowry.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Good morning, everybody. Go to strengthguild.com, strengthguild.com. Scroll down to the Iron Radio collections, and we've got new shirts and new banners for you to support the show. Everything from just a regular banner, regular shirt, to ones with sayings on them, like Lonnie's Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree shirt. And some news for you, we're going to have some contests for people who own these shirts and things. So if you support the show, we'll let you more on that later. So if you get in on these early, you can be one of the first people to win some prizes. So thank you very much. Go check out the site, strengthguild.com. Scroll down to Iron Radio Collections and support the show.
Welcome, Iron Radio listeners. This is Lonnie Lowry. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I'm a sports nutritionist, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder.
And this is Phil Stevens. I run Strength Guild. I'm a powerlifter, Highland Games athlete. And I got to meet in 2 weeks.
Nice. This is Dr. Mike Nelson, creator of the Flex Diet Cert, associate professor at the Carrick Institute, and it's been warmer in Minnesota. Yeah, above freezing.
Oh, that's beautiful. So we got Nate Haid with us today. Nate, say something about yourself.
Yeah, hey guys. My name is Nate Haid. I'm a Master Sergeant in the United States Army, and I'm currently on good old Army recruiting duty. So happy to be here.
All right, everybody. We only have one little piece of news, and then Phil is going to lead the interview with Nate today. This is spanking new stuff. I just thought you guys might want to hear this.
Strength and muscle sport news.
It's not surprising, I guess. Maybe I'm spoiling it by saying that at the beginning, but this is Journal of Strength and Conditioning research by Harrison and colleagues. This is March of this year, so this is, now. Bone mineral density differences across female Olympic lifters, power lifters, and soccer players. It says the location, the intensity, and the direction of applied mechanical pressure, of course, play important roles in determining bone mineral density, and that can make more sports, certain sports more advantageous. They looked at 37 women, 10 power lifters, 8 Olympic lifters, 8 soccer players, and then they compared them to 11 just recreationally active controls, I guess you would say. Cross-sectional study, of course, so it's not like there's some intervention over time. They're just basically, like so much of what we're talking about lately, it's an observational study, who's got the densest bones. Mm-hmm. All athletic groups had total bone mineral density greater than the recreationally active women. The Olympic lifters had the highest total bone mineral density compared to all other athletic groups. Olympic lifters had significantly greater bone density than the power lifters. I thought that was interesting.
See that.
But there was no difference in total bone mineral density between the power lifters and the soccer players. Now, that surprised me, honestly. Yeah. Anyway, they go on just to sort of conclude, Olympic-style lifting includes both high-impact and odd-impact loading modalities that are associated with the highest bone mineral density at both the lumbar spine and the femoral neck. So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. It has to be the dynamic nature of the sport and just the pounding. They're throwing weights around, and the weights are landing on them. They're not just picking them up. And anybody knows, you get weight moving and it lands on you, it's exponentially heavier than just picking it up.
Oh, right.
So,
yeah.
And it's trying to toss you around and stuff. So,
right.
Trying to put torque on your bones and.
It was only several years ago. You'd think I would have learned this early on, but I think the data were sort of emerging about the rate of loading being a big deal, not just the heaviness.
Yeah,
right, but
impulse loading.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not surprised by the fact that the Olympic lifters have the densest bones. I was surprised that the power lifters didn't have denser bones than the soccer players.
Yeah, that is surprising.
Maybe, the explosive nature. I mean, you kick a soccer ball really hard, that's impact, and they're running around. So
I would like to know where they tested that. It's got to be like a femur.
Well, they did say,
lumbar spine and femoral neck, right?
Yeah, lumbar spine and femoral neck.
Mm-hmm. I would expect the power lifters from like the belly button up are probably a lot more dense than a soccer player.
Mm-hmm.
They do a lot, all the benching and rowing and crap they do.
Yeah.
So, whereas compared to the soccer players, don't use their upper body much. So,
I imagine the soccer players are training too. Did they say anything about their training?
Yeah, that's true.
Olympic lifts or anything?
Yeah, I just tried to summarize here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It could be from their training too. We don't know if it was training or game or combination.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it did say all athletic groups. They looked at total body as well. But it would, to Phil's point, I guess it would have been cool. Yeah, let's just look at some kind of upper body measurement. I don't know, like carpals of the wrist or something like that. Something that might let the powerlifters shine. I am not, from just looking at this paper, going to tell powerlifters their bones aren't denser than soccer players. I don't buy that fully. I would, but again, you're right. Like, what else is going on with their training? And cross-sectional studies. It's hard to control free living people.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
and you may get a different group of soccer players that may be different too, or a different group of power lifters. So it's just the one segment that they grab there to compare.
Yeah. I mean, keeping in mind, this is 8 to 10 women in a group, basically. So, anyway, I just thought that was cool, right? I mean,
it
kind of emphasizes to Phil's people. Maybe your Olympic lifters actually have denser bones. Maybe if you have a woman who's interested in bone density, you're like, well, let's do some explosive stuff. Let's do some odd stuff, and not just do like the 3 big lifts. But I don't see you doing that anyway necessarily.
As long as they get their game down, I don't care how thick their bones are. As long as you can play your game well, at that point. But
all right, well, that's it.
Okay, I just wanted to throw one thing out there. I'm going to publicly shame someone in my gym, just because I can. I'm not going to say his real name. Let's call him Chad. So I made a new rule this week in my gym. We're all getting ready for a meet. And Chad went to squat, figuring out his opener. And we figured that out. And then Chad figured out his bench opener. And his bench opener is 20 pounds more than his squat.
Oh.
So there's a new rule in the gym. If you go to a frickin' meet and you outbench your squat, you are no longer able to come to the gym until you go fix your squat.
Oh, my God.
So, and I made him aware. I said, you got 2 weeks to fix this.
Wow.
So anybody that wants to join Strength Field there, you gotta know that. Like, if you walk in and you're like benching more than you squat, you need to come back. Just go squat for a few months and come back. So, anyways, this just a little lightheartedness there before we get going. Nate, it's good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Nate said he's been listening to us from the start,
from the very beginning, with Charles and Fortress and now Mike. So it's kind of almost surreal to be here, to be honest with you.
So let's get into you. What got you started in, what's your fitness background from an early age?
Sure. Yeah. So I graduated from high school in 2002. I'm from just a rural town in Michigan, Essexville, Michigan, and I graduated in 2002. I played football. I played baseball. Did a little bit of bigger, faster, stronger, I guess, lifting, in high school, and I didn't really, kind of have a plan for what I was going to do after high school. And actually, my senior year at high school, in my first hour class in September of 2001, I actually watched the Twin Towers come down. So I kind of, saw that event, and then, I saw, our military go into Afghanistan, and I kind of decided that, I think the military is going to be a viable option for me. So I originally joined the Marine Corps first, and right before I was getting ready to ship out, I was doing a little bit of training, and I tore my rotator cuff, so I had to have that surgically repaired. And in doing that, I had to wait about a year, and I eventually joined the Army in 2003. And that's really when I guess my fitness journey kind of started, because aside from just playing just football and baseball and just doing what the gym coach from 1975 had me do for football, I really didn't know a whole lot. So that's kind of how I got started in fitness. And I initially went to basic training in 2003 in Fort Knox. And we went down there. Basic training is 9 weeks long. It was 9 weeks long at the time. So we did a lot of fitness exercises gears toward the Army physical fitness test. Mm-hmm. So it's called the APFT. So basically, it was a test of record since about 1980. And all it is it's a 2-mile run for time, 2 minutes of continuous push-ups, and 2 minutes of continuous sit-ups. So, a lot of the things that a soldier does in basic training, it's not really conducive to that type of training. So, it was kind of a weird mix when I first started. And then after that, I went to my job school. I decided to be an armament repairman. So my job was to fix anything from an M4 rifle to an M1 Abrams main gun. So I graduated from my initial job school, and then my first assignment was in Fort Stewart, Georgia, in 2004. And there, I kind of understood, what the Army's focus was for physical fitness, and it was really geared towards passing that Common Core APFT. Mm-hmm. There wasn't really a lot of advice as far as nutrition and what to do for warm-ups. I mean, I can remember many mornings where your sergeant would call you in formation. You would do a left face, and then you would immediately start on a 5-mile run. So, not a whole lot there as far as really kind of learning about fitness. And then I went on my first deployment to Iraq in 2005, and that's really where from doing daily combat operations, I really learned some of the things that I needed to do on a daily basis just to be able to literally survive in those types of environments. And I found that doing some type of cardio, whether it's running, jogging, walking, rucking. For those of you that don't know, rucking is just you put on a backpack, and we call it a rucksack. You load it with weight, and you just move out, and that's your main means of transportation, whenever you're overseas, if you're not in a vehicle. So I found that doing that, and then, just having a upper body day, a lower body day, and then lots of calisthenics exercises generally put me in a pretty good range to pass that Army physical fitness test. Mm-hmm. So I, ended up doing that deployment in 2005. It was a pretty dangerous one. We were in southern Baghdad in 2005, and that's when they first really started to come out with the improvised explosive devices and the explosively formed projectiles that really, hurt a lot of people over there. And I deployed back to Iraq. My wife at the time, we ended up having our first child, and I ended up doing another deployment for 15 months to Baghdad. And during that deployment, I really realized that I don't know if I want to make the Army a career, because there's quite a few deployments involved, and I'd say it's pretty tough being on the family, deploying like that, and having a newborn. I wasn't really too sure if I wanted to stay in, and actually got chosen to go on recruiting duty. So when you're in the Army, whenever you make sergeant, which is E5, you have to do what's called a broadening assignment. So the Army will what we call it is you're voluntold. Mm-hmm. So you're voluntold to either be a drill sergeant, a recruiter, or what we call an AIT platoon sergeant, which is basically like an instructor. Yeah. So I was chosen to be a recruiter. I came out in recruiting duty in 2009 in Michigan. Was there for about 3 years, and then I was chosen to recruit for Army Special Forces, so the Green Berets. I did that for about a year, and then I was promoted. I recruited for Army Special Operations, Explosive Ordnance Disposal, and then ultimately the Tier 1 Special Mission Units, which is kind of like the higher end of Special Operations. And I did that for a couple of years, and then I'm currently on my last assignment here. I'm a Senior Master Trainer for the New England Recruiting Battalion. So I basically go out and train Army recruiters on how to be better recruiters, and part of that job is also training them on their fitness. So that's kind of my my story, and Yeah.
So before we're going to use the second half of the show about the, mainly on the recruiting side and what you guys are looking for at various levels. But so on your side, equipment wise and stuff, so you basically had nothing over there, right? Or did you guys have some things to work with?
Yeah, when we first got over there, Phil, we had to get pretty creative. So
yeah.
I worked on the M1 Abrams, and the main gun round's about 80 pounds. So we used to do cleans with that. We'd rotate the turret on the Abrams. We'd do pull-ups on that. One thing we did have though was a TRX. I don't know if that company just, if they were feeling patriotic, but we had hundreds of those things.
Oh.
And we used that for quite a bit. And then towards the end of the deployment, we ended up getting barbells and rubber weights and stuff. So we're able to do, some type of, of training over there.
So how important do you think it is? I mean, oh God, how do I even preface this here? The old Army fitness test compared to what you did. I mean, how much more strength do you think is required than just being able to do 2 minutes of sit-ups, 2 minutes of push-ups? I mean, or do you?
No, I think the old Army physical fitness test, it was, what it was a gauge to see if you were physically mature enough to go out on your own time and maintain that, because it takes a lot to maintain that 2-mile run. Yeah. It takes a lot to maintain the 2 minutes of push-ups and sit-ups at the level. Mm-hmm. To be honest with you, in a combat situation, so just for example, when we were in Iraq in 2005 and we were in Sadr City, a daily load for a guy would be, 70 pounds of battle armor. We call it a flak jacket. Mm-hmm. If you were an M4, you carry an M4, you'd have over 15 to 20 pounds of ammunition. On top of that, if you were a medic, you'd have another 10. So, you're looking at, close to 60, 70 pounds of gear, that you have to, get up, squat, go from a kneeling position to a standing position, do sprints, with that stuff on. So, you have to have a very, very good, I don't want to say core, but you got to be strong on the main lift. So, yeah. Guys found out real quick, you don't have much time over there. So, if you went to a gym, you generally see guys doing deadlifts, squats, mill press, cleans, some Olympic lifting if you were into that stuff. And then, that was really about it, just because you just really didn't have a lot of time to train over there, because you're almost in a survival mode where, you don't really have a diet. Everything gets thrown out the window. You're trying to eat every single possible thing you can just to load up on calories, because, you're carrying 60, 70 pounds of gear in 120-degree weather, and, you're just trying to make it back safe to your family. So, so the training you definitely find out really, really quick what works for you, and you definitely find out real quick what fuels you efficiently.
Would you say that, like you were talking about the drill sergeant in basic, he said a lot of times it was just wake up, about face, go. That to me, okay, from the physical fitness, like the athletic trainer part of me, if I'm dealing with a sports kid or something, probably not the best idea. No. But when I'm dealing with a bunch of military people, they're going to be sitting somewhere, let's say they're on a base or whatnot, and all of a sudden a bomb goes off, and okay, guys, we got to go. There is no warm-up time. So that's almost real life, and just having you guys ready to go at any time. At least two. Of course, you probably won't be 100% level. If we gave you guys, okay, guys, there's a bomb coming, we got 10 minutes to get warmed up.
Absolutely.
That would be great, but it's just not a real world situation. So,
sure.
Do you think a lot of that mindset comes from that? Or just, Gunny being a hard ass?
I think the Army and the military in general is really kind of steeped in tradition, and you kind of run into that pitfall where this is the way it was done when I came up, so this is the way it'll be done when I go out mentality. But I will say this, we since 2003 there definitely has been a major shift in in the way that the way that the Army designs their fitness program, the way that basic training is conducted. So, for example, for basic training today, if you were to have, your son or daughter go down to basic training, it is completely different. the Army just put out a new manual, a field manual called Army Holistic Fitness, and they actually have a program, and it will tell you exactly what you're doing physically that day. They have different days where they're doing different kinds of mobility drills. They're doing they're on foam rollers. They have a dietitian come in there and explain to them, hey, you're going to be going to the field. They give you like the field expedient version of nutrition. You're going to need X amount of calories to survive in this type of environment. You need this type of, you should be drinking, X amount of, gallons of water in some circumstances. So there definitely has been a shift, Phil, to a different mindset of, if we are going to put you in a position where you're going to have to engage somebody, we're going to make sure that you're physically and mentally sound to perform that mission. And on the back end of it too, I think what the Army has found is, when you do those things, when you do a left face and just run guys, you see a lot of stress fractures.
Yeah. And
believe it or not, when you first join the Army, if you're a kid in Kansas and you walk into an Army recruiting station, the only physical requirement that you have to meet is the Army's height and weight requirements.
Yeah.
There's no physical fitness test before you join. So you potentially could have a young man or woman who has never done anything physically in their life join and say, hey, I want to be an infantryman.
Yeah. And
you have to take that person from a raw, malleable kid who's never played a sport into a combat soldier in a very short amount of time. So I think they've realized that, especially on the back end when guys get out and they do have those injuries. So there definitely is a shift, Phil.
Well, that segues perfectly into what my next question was going to be. How much of this change was due to like the Army needing change, or how much it was the population coming in has changed so much that they needed to change? Meaning 30 years ago, I have to believe 30 years ago, the average person that just signed up for the military was in exponentially better physical shape than they are today.
Less fat. Yeah.
Yeah. Kids just did more stuff. You probably, your average person just signing up had to be markedly better shape. Physical education in schools was better. Kids were out playing and running all the time. They weren't just stuck to a device. Now, I have to believe that the average, you got kids that have done nothing but play Call of Duty and I want to be a soldier. And it's like, dude, you can barely pick up your breakfast cereal. And you guys now have to put together a program to take somebody from nothing to something. At least before they had some kind of base. A lot of them had played football and baseball and, been active their whole life. Would you say that's a correct assessment?
That's absolutely spot on, Phil. I was looking at stats yesterday, and actually, 1 in 4 people who apply, to the Army, they don't make it. And, there's physical requirements. Another thing too, that I will point out is the testing requirements too. In order to get into the Army, you've got to take the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, which is called the ASVAB. And there's no calculators on that test. It's all freehand. So, I've had, different instances where, the class valedictorian in high school, comes in to take the test, and it's like, wow, this is, this person's going to join, this will be good. And you get their ASVAB score, and, they failed it because they've never done math without a calculator. So there's a lot of different things, but physically, yeah, absolutely. And we actually do have a program. So when someone joins, once they're through all the administrative requirements, all the physical requirements, whenever they choose a job in the Army. So the one thing that's nice about the Army is it's the only branch where you actually get to choose your job. So in some of the other branches, let's say you want to be a medic. You can go into the medical field, but you can't necessarily pinpoint your job. So with the Army, what they've done is they've assigned a physical, requirement to each individual job. And what that does is, it allows those kids who, like you said, go from, playing video games and they decide they want to be an infantryman. It gives them a baseline to test to see, if they're able to go in that job, right away. And it's called the OPAT. And basically it's 4 events: standing long jump, a seated power throw, a strength deadlift, and an interval aerobic run. And based on how you score, it will give you a rating. So, for example, if you want to be an infantryman and you take that test, you're going to have to score heavy, which is for the long jump, it's a 160 centimeter long jump. For the power throw, which is it's a 10-pound ball, you got to throw it 450 centimeters. And for the deadlift, you got to lift over 160 pounds. And then for the interval run, you got to do 43 shuttles. So, they are kind of, I think they are kind of getting to that, Phil, where it's, hey, you are coming off the street, you do want to do this. Let's at least just give you a baseline to see where you're at in the beginning, to see if you're even physically qualified for this.
And is this okay, let's say I get this job. Mm-hmm. Now, how often do I have to retest and pass to keep said job?
Yep. So when you first come in, you have to take before you go to basic training, you have to take the OPAT, the Occupational Physical Assessment Test, just to qualify for that job. And then, once you go to basic training, once you get trained in a certain job, then you have to take the Army Combat Fitness Test. Okay. So that's kind of like the OPAT on steroids. It's got a couple different events, and the Army actually just changed their physical fitness test to this on 1 October 2020. And, the different events that are in there is you've got the 3-rep max deadlift, you got a standing power throw, hand release push-up, sprint drag carry, a leg tuck, and then a 2-mile run. And it's all combat arms open, all combat jobs, all service support jobs are open to both men and women. So it's gender neutral for jobs. So it's also gender neutral for that physical fitness test. So just like the OPAT, when you're in the Army, you must qualify every single year in your category to continue service in that job.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's up to you to keep your ass in shape. Or you're fired. You're off the team. So
absolutely.
No, that's good. That's good. And it's gender neutral. So basically, if a woman and me went for the same job, we'd have to both hit the same standards.
Absolutely. Yep.
So it makes sense to me. Okay, let's take a break, and then we're going to go to the second half of the show, kind of, and talk about maybe the selection for the special forces jobs and things like that, what you're looking for, and how further than the fitness thing goes.
Perfect.
So.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, you know who this is. So I'm here to tell you about Dr. Mike T. Nelson's new book, Why You Should Eat Keto. I don't do it because, look at me. Come on, I'm fabulous and I'm fantastic. Anyway, you should text the Keto ebook, all in one word, to 44222 to receive your free copy. Do it now!
Iron Radio is, of course, primarily a podcast. But over the years, there have been technical glitches calling for backup streaming and listeners who wanted the convenience of other sources of audio content. Toward this end, Iron Radio is now simulcast and backed up on YouTube. If needed, please search Lawnman07 or Iron Radio from within YouTube. There's not much video, but if you like to listen through YouTube on a Roku or other living room device, there you go. Okay, listeners, after more than a decade of joining us on the podcast airwaves, you can now also become viewers on YouTube. This is not our usual simple backup of the audio show, but rather a growing body of video taste tests covering various foods of interest to nutrition enthusiasts, bodybuilders, and powerlifters. From within YouTube, simply search for Iron Radio Taste Test or Nutrition Radio Taste Test. In about 15 minutes, we cover taste and texture similar to other products, usefulness to the co-hosts, and whether we would recommend the product to certain clients. You may even want to watch our podcast feed or Facebook group for which products are coming down the pike so you can taste test them with us. Join us for this new monthly project.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
All right, folks, we're back. It's Phil and Mike and Lonnie, and we've got Nate talking military fitness and special forces. And just quickly before we get back into this discussion, don't forget we've got that Haiku Contest going on. You can do that through the forums. It's theironforum.com. Or you could even just go to ironradio.org and send an email. But as of right now, there's only a handful of entries in writing a haiku, something to do with strength or size or what have you. And they're going to walk away with the gifts unless somebody else wants to get in on it. So you know how to write a haiku. It's 5, 7, 5 syllables, real straightforward, very short poetry kind of thing. I just thought it would be fun. Been thinking about that for years. So, again, do it through theironforum.com or ironradio.org. Send an email and win some cool stuff.
Sweet. All right. We're back. We're going to talk to Nate about what I want to get into now is like what you're looking for on the recruiting side for basically somebody, like some kid that wants to go into further in their career, maybe move towards special forces or something like that. Physically, what are we looking for? Are you as a recruiter like seeking people out? Like, hey kid, yes. I think you could do this. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So just like we have recruiters that recruit young men and women off the street, we have recruiters in every major Army base. They're called the SORB, the Special Operations Recruiting Battalion, that recruit young men and women for Army Special Operations. So Army Special Operations, it kind of gets a little bit confused with Special Forces. So before I get into it, it might be good to explain the differences. Yes. When most people think of Special Forces or Special Operations, they think of the Green Berets, which we do recruit for that. But there's two other mission sets that we recruit for as well too, and that's psychological operations. So these are soldiers that that perform special operations that have to deal with establishing relations with local populace. Mm-hmm. Distributing information from combat commanders down to the civilian sector, trying to synchronize different efforts with the local populace. We also have civil affairs, which is another special operations unit that that goes into different areas in performs foreign and internal defense. They work with local armies, local populace, and kind of building up their military and their infrastructure. And that allows us to, get the trust and credibility of the local populace we're working with. Mm-hmm. Another subset is the Army Rangers. So the difference is, Rangers is kind of a complicated thing. You can join the Army Rangers right off the street. You can also join them while you're in the Army. The Rangers are a specific light infantry unit that performs direct action. So when you hear someone say, I've been to Ranger School, which is a 3-month-long course, leadership course. They're not necessarily a ranger in a ranger battalion. So there's 4 ranger battalions across the Army, and their specialty is direct action, which means to quite literally close with and capture and eliminate the enemy. So those are the special operations of the Army. We also have an aviation element called the 160th, which is they're called the Night Stalkers. They perform special operations, aviation tactics and different things of that matter. So, when someone comes in and they say, hey, I would like to do something else, I'm really interested in doing special operations. The first thing we do is, we talk to that young man or woman and we say, hey, what do you know? Because a lot of soldiers that are even in the Army don't really know the differences between the two. Yes. So if that young man or woman wanted to join the special forces, which is the Green Beret, mm-hmm. It's pretty easy. When you first come in, the first thing you have to do is you have to volunteer. Special Forces is an all volunteer unit, and so you sign a statement that says, hey, I volunteer to go to training. And then once you're done with that, you have to go get a physical by a doctor that will see if you're physically qualified to perform the missions of a special operations soldier. And they'll do a couple different things because you have to do high altitude, low opening parachute operations. They want to check your eyes. They want to make sure that there's no issues with your heart. You get an EKG performed. So they're looking and they're saying hey, we're going to invest hundreds of thousands of dollars in this soldier. We want to make sure that this guy is 100% physically able to perform this job.
Yeah.
And once they get that physical back, we'll give them a physical fitness test. And the test that we give them is the same exact physical fitness test that every soldier takes yearly.
Okay.
So that's just to get in though, Phil.
Okay.
So once you're in and you're set to go, you go out to Special Forces Assessment and Selection, which is it's 3 weeks with all the processing, and it's a course that's designed to see if you have the propensity to be a special forces soldier. And special forces soldiers, you see videos like, trying to think though, Rambo and all these ones where you have this one-man army behind enemy lines, and it's the furthest thing from special forces. And a lot of guys think that they do a lot of direct action where they're assaulting people, and that's really not the job of Army Special Forces. If you go back to the 1960s and 70s, when John F. Kennedy and President Kennedy allowed the Green Berets to wear the Green Beret, that's really where it started. A lot of their missions they're teachers. They train. They train foreign armies. They teach them basic weapons. They perform clandestine intelligence gathering. So they're making sure that, when that young man or woman goes out to Special Force selection, that yes, obviously they have to be physically sound, but mentally you have to be extremely, extremely tough. A lot of times, a lot of the drills and a lot of things they do, they won't give you an end time. They want to test your mettle psychologically. And they'll just say, hey, put on your rucksack and just head west, and we'll tell you when you're done.
When you're done.
And it's 18 to 20 hours. You're kind of alone and unafraid. So they're gauging all that stuff. And once you finish that selection, you're either selected or you're not selected. And they let you know. And if you're allowed to join the Special Forces, they put you through a rigorous pipeline. And you're either assigned as a weapons sergeant, you specialize in weapons, an engineer sergeant, you're obviously, in engineering, or you're a medical sergeant or a communication sergeant. And the training's up to, anywhere from a year to 18 months. And, especially the medical sergeant, talking about, holistic fitness. I mean, these guys are, they're trained in everything: basic EMT certified, basic surgery, basic nutrition, basic dentistry, basic veterinary medicine. So, whenever, and in some cases, when these guys go out there, they're the most, the most highly trained medical person in that country in a lot of circumstances. So, they're making sure they're going to get their money. And, whenever a Special Forces soldier graduates, generally they have, 6 to 7 years already in the Army. And generally a Special Forces soldier will retire in about 20 to 22 years. So you're really looking at about 10 years of team time, they call it. And one of the things that they have in the Special Forces regiments is they have it's called a human performance team. So they, if you can imagine, Lonnie and Mike, like a Division I training center. So they have these areas where you'll have a licensed dietitian, you'll have a trainer there, you'll also have high end. You'll have some places have like a chiropractor, a masseuse. I mean, it's just like a professional athlete, and they want to make sure that this guy, this girl, that joins is 100% taken care of. So when they get called to do those types of missions, they are 100% physically sound to go perform that mission.
Love it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, at this point, you have a lot of money invested in this asset, if you will. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, to keep it healthy, that's probably a good idea. So so let's say, okay, I come to you and like, I want to get in. Is there recommendations you give me, like in the preparation phase to, okay, if you want to get in, I suggest you do this just so you're ready.
Sure. Yeah. So those human performance centers that they have, it's called the Thor program. And after this, if anyone's interested, I can post the program. It's all open source and everything. I could post it on the IronRadio Facebook page. But there's I believe there's an 8-week train up, a 12-week, and a 16-week. And kind of just like we were saying in the beginning, I mean, it rotates from from distance runs to rucking to just basic kettlebell movements. I think there's squat and deadlift portion on there, but it's designed to take your selection date almost like you're going to peak for a meet fill, and it gets you all ready to go. So on the day of selection, you're 100% recovered, you're 100% trained, and you're ready to do it. Because what a lot of guys do is they have that old mentality is I'm gonna do a 30K ruck the day before selection and crush this, and they can't walk out to selection the next day.
Yeah. No, and I've got the 10-week one right here in front of me open that you sent me. And yeah, like you said, it's a mix of, I don't know, there's an average of 2 to 3 days of pure strength training, and then mixing up rucks runs and non-impact things.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, from an outsider here, not in the military, I would think things have changed in the last 100 years to where we are a much more mechanized army. Like, how important is, like, in my mind today, you can correct me if you're wrong, because I mean, you've been deployed. Like, in my mind, if I have to do a 50K ruck, I'm in trouble. I'm probably somewhere I don't want to be in today's mechanized army. Whereas before, it was like, hey, guys, we need to attack them. They're 100 miles over there. Let's start walking.
Mm-hmm.
How important is distance running now, comparatively? I mean, it seems like today it would be a lot of sprint fast, grab things, go, more towards how the test has changed to. And then if we need to go 10 miles, we're jumping in the Hummer, type of thing.
No, you're spot on, Phil. I mean, it is one of those things you don't see a lot of guys, specifically training for that, for those long distance runs. But, it kind of goes back to, that old mentality. We have the new Army Combat Fitness Test, and it is a great improvement. But at the end, kind of shake your head a little bit. There's a 2-mile run as well, So, I mean, the long distance, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, unless you're, in 1994 and you're in Mogadishu doing the Mogadishu Mile. I don't know if you ever saw that scene in Black Hawk Down. Yeah. There's not a whole lot of 4-mile runs, 5-mile runs, for sure. But also too, just everybody has their flavor too. So you mean when you're on an Army base, you have your daily physical fitness training in the morning, and it's kind of vanilla. But then, in the afternoon, you have guys that, they're, they just can't shake the long distance running bug.
Oh,
and that's,
of course,
that's their thing. But there's also the psychological part to it too, where, not to get too personal, but I mean, I can remember in 2005, I lost a really good friend overseas, and as soon as I got back to the base, the phones are shut off. You're not able to call anybody. So I went to 2 places. So I went to the chapel to go see the chaplain, and then the very next place I went to was the gym.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because, I mean, I think Lonnie has said it a million times over the years. 10 pounds today is 10 pounds tomorrow is 10 pounds tomorrow. It's nice to have that familiar feel. And with so many crazy things going on, it's nice sometimes just to put on some Slayer or Pantera and just space out for an hour and forget exactly where you are. So there's also that aspect as well too.
Well, yeah, and I can see, I'm not even trying to say that running is just stupid and they shouldn't do it. Like, if I were to join the Army right now, I would start running. Because if I did get in the shit and I needed to be able to run 5 miles, I want to know I can do it. You want to have, like with anything, when you're training for something, okay, here's the baseline that I know I might need. I want more than that.
Sure.
I don't want to be just the baseline. So, no, I was just getting your input on that as far as. So then, so we're looking at this Thor thing. What goes on? Like this thing potentially has me just physically ready, or do they step things up from there? Like, are they gonna, once I get in selection, like, okay, now shit gets hard. We just got you baseline ready.
Yeah, whenever you make it through selection, I mean, and you're done with selection, part of the part of the in processing is going to that human performance center and having that that coach, that trainer, that nutritionist, that dietitian, taking a holistic look at all right, what are you doing, what are you training on, and they do. I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's called, is it BFT or the diagnostic test where you jump, you rotate your trunk a couple different ways and then take measurements. Is that what it's called, Phil? I mean, they do have that there where they take these baseline measurements, and then based on how you, perform in these tests, they'll specifically tailor a program to your needs.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Gotcha. But I mean, let's say in selection school, like, do they go through? So a lot of that is mental, but I mean, they're going through a lot of physical activities.
Yes.
Is correct? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. And but basically this program here, we're not going through training. Like during their selection program, they're not going, okay, we all go to the gym and hit this. It's more like this gets you ready to go through that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So this should have you, and I mean, honestly, looking at this thing, it's pretty legit, in my opinion. I mean, it's a lot of, you'll start off with front squat, lat pull downs, and it looks like it's in a, you're running these as like a exercise pairs. So you'll do 15 front squats, 15 pull downs, rest a minute. 15 front squats, 15 pull downs, rest a minute. And then we go to barbell split squats, barbell bent over rows, and med ball side twists. And then we move on to deadlifts and things like that. I've seen a lot worse. No, this looks like something it looks like full body, a few days a week, just getting you ready. And then mix in a bunch of running and sprints and things like that. The thing that I can tell you right now, just looking at, I look at everything personally, I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna need a program to get ready to do this program as far as the running goes. Because I'm a 260-pound power lifter. Like I'd kill it's like kettlebell deadlifts, 3 sets of 15. I was like, well, I hope you guys have some big fucking kettlebells because I'm gonna need something a little heavier.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think when you made me my program last, I mean, that was a question. I'm like, Phil, what day should I run on, and how should I program there? Because that is, that's the one thing. I mean, between you and I mean, I do not enjoy running. It is not a favorite thing in mine. But every 6 months we get tested on it, so that's the challenge, is to fit it.
Yeah. Yep. Lonnie, do you have any questions, Mike? And then I'm going to go into these few questions from the forum.
Just my only comment was that I think the new version of the test, as you're talking about, is so much better, and I have a female client who's preparing for it, and when she started, she was already pretty good. She's like, I want to destroy the test and get like the highest score possible. So so I think it's good that it's based on the objective of what is the job that you have to do, and then let's map the requirements and go backwards from there.
My thought was similar, and partly to what you guys were saying earlier. Is it possible, this sounds odd, but to be too fit? And we were talking about this before we came back from break, everybody. But like, is there a role for specialists in the field? Like somebody, instead of they can't shake the running bug, what if they can't shake the bodybuilding bug? You're like, too much muscle mass, dude. That's just a detriment to you at this point. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see that. You see the gym rat that's that's into bodybuilding, and it may be his first deployment, and he gets over there, and I mean the only thing I can say is just seeing it by experience. I mean, it's the crazy thing nowadays is you have to be with the way that war is fought, in this day and age. I mean, you've got to be a physical Swiss Army knife, and mentally you've got to be a Swiss Army knife. So a lot of those guys, find out quick, hey, I need to back off a little bit because, I just put my gear on and I walk to the truck and I'm gassed already. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you have a little bit of evolution, in the first couple weeks, but also too, there's the other thing too, Lonnie, is, you're doing all types of things. I mean, some days you're a policeman, some days you're a some days you're a soldier, some days you're a diplomat. And guys find out real quick physically what works and what doesn't work, and different areas are different. But I think in general, guys find out real quick that, you know what, I think I'm going to lay off the incline flies for a little bit and just do a couple push-ups for time.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, just some self-reflection. Like, I can tell you, if I went in now, I'd be like, I'm an awful big target that can't get himself into a small space to hide. I would want to get smaller and get a little more mobile and like crouch behind that little thing right there. I can't, guys. I can't do it. He's going to shoot me. I can't get that small. So just the ability to be mobile and agile, and the strength component's there. I want to be able to, like, if my buddy gets hit, I want to be able to have the ability to get him and get him out of trouble. But at the same time, I want to be able to keep myself out of trouble, and part of that is just being physically able.
Sure.
Hide behind that little pole. I can't, because I'm 4 times bigger than it.
Pole.
I'm just like Tom Arnold on that movie with Schwarzenegger where you hide behind the sign. Yeah. So let's get to some of these forum questions and see where they go. So I know soldiers obviously have to keep fit. This is from Hormas. Obviously have to keep physically fit, and their training lives involve bodyweight exercises, but I've always wondered how iron enthusiasts try to keep their hobby, if at all possible, while serving. Do they know any meatheads in service, and what kind of basic equipment do you have access to, restrictions they deal with while trying to eat enough, etc.? You kind of touched on this, but you got anything more to add to that?
Yeah, for sure. So, I would say, the Army in general is a meathead paradise. I mean, once work gets off at 5:30, 6 o'clock, or 1700, 1800, I mean, the gyms are always packed. And, to answer that listener's question, usually there's about 5 or 6 gyms on a military base. And the way that they're kind of built is, usually 2 or 3 have, like the 80s, 90s style, hammer strength. There's a little free weight section. And I would say probably as of about 10 years ago, they started to get, I don't want to say CrossFit, but I would say more of like a functional fitness center where you have, maybe 7 or 8 different squat racks, kettlebells up to, 120 pounds. Prowlers, things of that nature, where guys are in there, doing either powerlifting, Olympic lifting, or, just doing a combination of both. So, yeah, they're definitely, as far as what soldiers have access to in the garrison, I mean, to each its own. And then, of course, outside of military bases, the civilian population caters to the military a lot. I'm sure, Phil, you can probably say, around a lot of military bases, powerlifting is huge. There's a lot of big gyms around there. So you have quite a bit of access to all that stuff.
Okay. This is from Robert. How do they balance basic strength needs versus conditioning needs? Meaning, in like a special forces role, is the focus still high reps running and volume? Or are they becoming more specific to the field demands as the new Army PT tries to address? Any conditioning done before going into Special Forces, trying to get into Special Forces? Tons of guys on the internet claim some connection to how they helped strength train Special Forces troops. Any way to know who is speaking? I guess that's a separate question. Any way to know who is speaking the truth or who is throwing out bullshit? So let's hit the first one. You kind of did that. I mean, within the Special Forces, this is something we didn't touch on. Do they then have a different, like there are different jobs within like the Green Berets, correct? Like
yes.
You have a medical guy. Do they have a test above and beyond that original test? It's like, okay, you're going to be this guy. You need to be able to do this.
No, so the only difference is still in Army Special Operations, they have a little bit different fitness tests. They don't run a 2 mile. They run a 3 mile for time. And then in training, they have a rope climb, a water survival fitness test, But that's just during the training portion. Once they get out to a team, it all depends on what cycle they're on, and you're usually in a sustaining cycle where you maybe have an upcoming deployment in a year or two, or a training cycle where maybe you got 2 or 3 new guys to a team, so you're getting these guys to school. It all depends on what cycle you're in. So generally, when guys come back from deployment, it's just like they finish up a meet or something. I mean, you're going to have a month or two of just, all right, let's take some time off.
Yeah.
Go on leave. Let's get back in, do some mobility, do some soft tissue work. And then those human performance centers will sit down with each individual soldier and kind of map out, what that individual soldier has. So the nice thing is there's not a cookie cutter approach to every single person. It really is tailored to the individual person. So if you have a guy that's, gearing up for the physical fitness test in, 2 months, and he doesn't deploy for a year, he or she may focus on that, on that run a little bit more, just because that's what they're going to be graded on. And then, say 7-8 months down the road when they're getting ready for deployment, they may kind of ditch that run for more functional moves that would kind of mimic the rigors of combat. So it all really depends on what cycle they're in. But, to answer his question, I mean, each individual special operations, special forces soldier has a person that, that if they seek them out, they will give them not only training advice, but nutrition advice too.
Gotcha. And are these centers are just for like Spec Ops and Special Forces, correct? Like the average soldier. So that's a benefit you get. Basically, you get this. You have people there to help you with your specific needs as a, Special Forces or an operator or whatever. So that's kind of cool.
And they are going towards that. They're trying to get it so the human performance ratio to Special Forces. I don't know off the top of my head, but I mean it's pretty low. But they are starting to get that for the general population forces too. And I mean each brigade has a dietitian, has a medical personnel that if you seek them out, you can have that consultation with them. But I mean it is kind of limited in the population to trainer ratio. It's pretty.
Yeah, it's going to be thin comparatively. So, and then what about his second question? That's an interesting one. There are tons of guys out there that claim to be training. I helped write the Buds program back in blah blah blah. How do you know if somebody's speaking the truth or throwing out bullshit?
To be honest with you, I mean, not even talking about strength or training. I mean, in general in the military, the guys that talk a lot about it more usually don't have a lot. And the Special Forces have a nickname. They're called the Quiet Professionals, and that's usually how they roll. It's I made it through, and I personally have never been through Special Forces training. I just recruited guys, so there's that caveat. But that's just what I've seen is a lot of guys on top of the mountain that are screaming, maybe really haven't done a whole lot, and the guys that are kind of behind the scenes usually are the ones that the snake eaters that you got to watch out for. And I'm going to watch that guy and see what he's doing.
Well, and that's what, just from my personal experience, like I had the pleasure of when I was living in Thailand for a year, I got to train with a group of Navy SEALs.
Oh wow!
These were like 20-year-old kids that looked like nothing. If I looked at them on the street, I'd be like, you better not talk about my mom wrong. I'm going to jack you up. That kid would kill me. You get to training with them, and it was like, they looked like nothing. But, and they'd come in the gym and just screw off and this and that. But then you see them doing their thing. It's like, holy shit. And like you said, they were quiet. They didn't talk about it. They weren't cocky. They weren't, they were just average Joes. And it was like, but then it comes to brown to brass tacks, and okay, shit just got real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that kind of goes to heavily muscle side. I didn't see a lot of them that were just somebody would be like, dude, you're jacked.
It's just not conducive to the to
the job,
to the operation. Yeah.
So,
and you see those guys in the chow hall, Phil, and I mean it's like 6 or 7, pieces of pizza, right? I mean, whatever they can slam down, because they know the next day they're burning 4,000 to 5,000 calories with all that gear and that heat. And You know, they're just a mental strength that you just can't train for. It's just yep.
So I think we'll call it there, man. It's been an hour, and that was a lot of good info.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Yeah,
I think people will enjoy it. And hopefully, if anybody has follow-up questions for this or comments or anything, again, go to the forum, theironforum.com. There's already a section kind of up talking about this, and we can go into things further. So
yeah, and Phil, if anybody's interested in getting more information on the Army, I'm of course up in New England, but I'd be more than happy to address it on the forum, and I'll definitely post that program as well too.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me.
Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the IronRadio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.